Microsoft ended support for Internet Explorer 8, 9, and 10 in an effort to move more users to the program's final version, Internet Explorer 11, and Edge, Microsoft's new web browser. I spoke with two tech experts in the Seoul area to find out what the change means for South Korea, a country where Internet Explorer has been adopted as the Internet standard more than perhaps any other country in the world.
My name is James Larson, and I am a professor at SUNY Korea in the new city of Songdo, and I chair the Department of Technology and Society and also serve as Vice President for Academic Affairs. I think if we look back with a little bit of historical perspective, there are probably at least three reasons why Internet Explorer has become so dominant. First, Korea, despite moving quickly in the ICT sector and becoming a world leader, in fact, has in some ways been rather slow to adapt to certain developments in that sector. The second is that Korea's success in building its networks, both fixed and mobile, has been largely based on manufacturing and export of semiconductors, smartphones, television sets, screens, and so forth, but manufactured products rather than software. And third, as you probably know, this is a very strong culture, and most Koreans prefer to operate on a day-to-day basis in their own language, in the Korean language. And this carries over to patterns of use of the internet. So you've got this situation where Korea, despite having the fastest, most advanced broadband networks in the entire world, is one of only a tiny handful of countries where Google does not have a significant market share for search, for desktop search.
The use of Internet Explorer was also pragmatic as a way to protect both consumers and online vendors during online transactions.
My name is Philip Iglauer. I'm a tech reporter for ZDNet, CNET, and Tslug, and I've been here for on and off for about 10 years. In the 1990s, South Korea, the government and the private sector went hand in hand to roll out IT infrastructure in a big way. So they jumped on doing something about e-commerce before anyone else in the world. And what that meant for South Korea was to mandate the Microsoft plugin that is ActiveX. It's like basically it's an authentication program, certificate program. So what South Korea did is that they made your identity when you go shopping basically secure. So that protected the shopper and it protected the vendor. But that was in the 1990s. And so what ended up happening by mandating ActiveX, which was a Microsoft plugin, they basically locked in all consumers to Microsoft, because what Microsoft did was that if to use their ActiveX, because ActiveX is not unique only to Internet Explorer, it applies to a lot of Microsoft applications. But it basically ties you to Microsoft. So since the 1990s, by law, South Koreans got stuck with Internet Explorer because of this mandate to have an authentication certificate program.
With such widespread use here in South Korea and also around the world, why has Microsoft decided to phase out Internet Explorer instead of updating it like many of its other products?
Software experts discovered that it represented a big security hole. And I'm talking about experts from outside Microsoft as well as inside Microsoft itself. There was a Carnegie Mellon conference in the year 2000, August, I think, of 2000, bringing together leading internet security experts focused entirely on the security hole represented by ActiveX. The problem is that while you're installing these ActiveX controls, it can open up your desktop computer to an infection by various types of malicious code, malware, viruses. Your computer can be taken over and become a zombie and so forth. So identity theft and other problems arise.
Up until 2002, that was really the halcyon days of Internet Explorer. Something like worldwide, 80% plus computers had Internet Explorer as its default browser. I mean, nowadays, that seems weird. Most people use Chrome, Firefox, something else, even Mozilla. Nowadays, worldwide, something like 6% of the world has Internet Explorer on their computers. But in South Korea, it's still like 67% of computers have Internet Explorer. You have to have Internet Explorer to use ActiveX, and you have to have ActiveX if you want to shop or do internet banking, anything like that, buy an airline ticket, anything, you have to have ActiveX. And so it's kind of troublesome. Microsoft is trying to change things. They're updating. They're making their browser better. They have Internet Explorer 11 now, which is still kind of but it has Microsoft Edge. That's the new browser with Windows 10, which they launched in July last year. And it works great. So Microsoft wants to get all the people, move them away from Internet Explorer, get them to Microsoft Edge. In the meantime, you can use Internet Explorer 11. So that's why Microsoft is doing this.
As users switch to Internet Explorer 11 or other web browsers, how will the South Korean government and businesses adapt to this change? Might we see the birth of a new preferred browser, or will the future be more diverse than a single program? SUNY Korea professor James Larson says Korea's preparation for the change has not been adequate.
Too little and too late. You have to realize here in Korea, one government agency doesn't necessarily coordinate very well with another high-level government agency. So you have a situation where a few years ago, the Korea Communications Commission began warning about the problems with ActiveX. But I checked the dates on this, and I noticed that it was way back, almost 2 years ago, President Park Geun-hye called together a large group of business leaders at the Blue House. And during that briefing, she specifically referred to the need to change the software that's used for online commerce. And she mentioned to them that visitors from China have been complaining that they've had difficulty purchasing Korean products because of this ActiveX control. Now, that was almost 2 years ago. It took another year. It was only in April of 2015 that the Future Ministry, the Ministry of Science, ICT, and Future Planning, announced that the government would repeal the ActiveX legal requirement. And that's been underway, but the last I checked, there are still a majority of banks and other government financial-related services that are still requiring the ActiveX control. So it's really difficult, even with the president, endorsing change, to see it actually carried out.
And finally, ZDNet reporter Philip Iglauer says internet users have already come up with their own solution.
South Korea is on board. They're going to switch to Windows 10 in a big way. I think South Korea was the country with the fastest adoption of Windows 10 after it launched last year in July. The problem is that Edge does not support ActiveX. And that's why they're still supporting Internet Explorer 11, the most recent iteration of Windows Explorer. The thing is if you just look at user behavior, what seems to be happening is that people have two browsers on their computer. Or like my one colleague at ZDNet, he has a computer with Internet Explorer and a different computer with Chrome. So you can see that user behavior is basically doing the kind of muddle-through approach. You're going to have Internet Explorer for their shopping and use Chrome for everything else.
For KoreaFM.net, I'm Chance Dorland.